I've got 2 children, and I've tried to do the best for my children that's possible. And we try to give them a chance in life. As babies, we do everything. We study food charts, we have them weighed, we watch their first tooth come, we're pleased when we see them crawl. And what is the good of all this if at any minute somebody can press a bomb just to obliterate them all?
We look at the world and we see madness. But how can we bear witness to what we see? Roger Rawlinson thought of a way, and he did it. He didn't mind if people laughed at him and called him a fool. The worst thing is to feel you're alone. But as it turned out, at Easter 1958, Rawlinson wasn't alone. In London, Trafalgar Square was full.
This is Good Friday. Good Friday stands supremely for moral principle. And this business of hydrogen bombs and nuclear weapons is supremely a moral issue. I believe myself that the cross is a much more important symbol than the sword, and that this march to Aldermaston, it's an event in the course of the campaign for nuclear disarmament, where we may demonstrate the will of the people of Britain that the policy of reliance on nuclear weapons is an evil policy.
And an American said some good things.
We are non-violent because injury to one is injury to all. I want to point out that I think there is a new situation in international affairs. We are not going to solve this problem because people try to preserve their way of life. What is the American way of life, or the British way of life, or the Russian way of life? The fact matter is, it isn't a darn thing if we do not have life. And we must first begin by having life and not by annihilating ourselves.
First, though, we stood in silence to dedicate the march. We stood for a minute in silence, as we used to stand on Armistice Day. For we were standing for Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where 200,000 people were condemned to death in our name. And we weren't only thinking of the past. We were thinking of H-bomb tests and missile bases and science used to mutilate and destroy. The radioactive dust in the air we breathe and the food we eat. The 2,000 people a year were dying now because of strontium-90 in their bones. And how many next year? And the year after that? The silence was over, and so were the speeches. We raised our banners and got ready to move. Now was the time for action.
There has got to be an act of faith, which is a dangerous act, in which we are prepared to take the danger of behaving creatively.
And so the march to Aldermaston began. We were marching from the center of London to Aldermaston in Berkshire, about 50 miles, and we'd take 4 days. We'd chosen Aldermaston because that is where Britain is making H-bombs. Everyone wasn't for us. When we came to Hyde Park Corner, we found some people who were demonstrating for the bombs. They were Christians too. They read from the Bible, and they prayed against us. And the place they had chosen for their meeting was a memorial to men who had died in a war to end the war. But we, the living, remembered the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," and we went on our way. We went on down Knightsbridge. Ahead was our first halt, the Albert Memorial. We stopped here to eat our sandwiches and to get to know each other. Some people, of course, did their best to discredit the march from the start, calling it subversive or cranky. But that's not what the marches were like when you listened to them.
So I'm glad to have a chance to show what I feel about nuclear warfare, and because one usually doesn't have that opportunity as an ordinary person.
Yes, these were ordinary people. Not frivolous or eccentric, but ordinary people with a point of view.
I feel that if we really are interested in the future of our children, this is the smallest thing we can do to join this procession in our small way to ensure their future.
Well, I feel that this is a question of survival. There's no question of hitting back. It's purely on the basis of survival. If we have another atomic war of this kind, it's the finish for Britain. And I personally feel that it's time the people of Britain realise that. When they realise that it's compromise or death, and I think they'll make a real effort to solve the question of the H-bomb.
And as part of the youth in England who are going to live in the future, I felt it was my responsibility to take part in any sort of demonstration which would help stop warfare, and that's why I've come here.
A lot of young people marched to Aldermaston too. Some people call them irresponsible. But it's not irresponsible to have convictions, or to be cheerful about them. So we marched on together to Turnham Green, and now we were marching to music. Some of us marched as individuals, others as groups. We came from London and the Midlands and the North, from Scotland and Ireland and Wales. There were people from all over Britain in the long column that came into Chiswick at tea time and turned off the main road for a halt at Turnham Green. It's quite a time since people in Britain felt the need to make this kind of demonstration. Probably none of the young people had ever done anything like it before. But some of the older ones remembered the past.
I did this march in the lockout in 1926. We slept on the corn exchange floor at Reading, and we had sausage and mash in Maidenhead Workhouse, supplied by the Cooperative Society. I was very proud of that march. But I'd be frightfully ashamed of myself if I had not come on this march. I would never be able to look the children in the face if I had not come on this march. It isn't much, but it's all I can do, and it's my best. And if everybody else did their best, the children of the future would be saved from the atom and hydrogen bombs.
So we went on down the Great West Road. Some people had left, but many more had stayed, and others were joining all the time. The column stretched far down the road as evening came on, and we marched into Hounslow. The next day, it rained. The people who predicted failure for the march were pleased, but they were wrong. At 10 o'clock, we set off from Hounslow on the worst Easter Saturday of the century. The sensible people stay indoors on a day like this. But in a crazy world, being sensible doesn't seem to do much good. So we carried on down the arterial road towards London Airport. Outside the airport, a group of men were standing in the rain to watch us go by. Perhaps they were wondering what we were there for. If so, we had an answer for them.
You want to know why we came here? Well, for the simple reason is we are lovers of good music, for one thing. And if this hell of a lot goes up, we're not likely to hear good music anymore. There is another more serious part about it. We've got children. And we want their future secured, at least.
It's one way in which individuals can show that they think that this manufacturing and the possible use of hydrogen bombs is a very immoral thing. And I'm very strongly in favour of women pulling their weight in that way and not just having beliefs, but being prepared to back them up by a few wet feet and cold bones.
And so, wet feet, cold bones and all, we pushed on down the road to the west. It was still raining as we came into Slough, but in spite of the weather, the march got bigger all the time. And as we trooped down the high street, the column seemed as big as when we left Trafalgar Square. When we stopped, we discovered that the news of the march was moving fast. We found friends here in Slough too. The Methodists opened their hall to us, and we could sit down for a bit, have a cup of tea and dry off. There were speeches too, and we had something to say ourselves.
I came along to join the march from Northampton quite definitely because of my feelings with regard to the H-bomb and all that goes with it. I am definitely against all war, but I feel that with regard to the H-bomb, that it means the destruction of the world. As a grandfather, I am desirous of seeing that my grandchildren shall have the opportunity of a full life such as I have enjoyed myself.
Well, I am a housewife and I'm here with my husband, and I've come to march because I want to stop nuclear weapons being made because we have a child to protect.
My name is Michael Scott. I'm on this march because I think the time has come people of every country in the world to express their determination to resist this great menace to the future of our civilization and our mode of life. I have seen something in other countries, in Africa in particular, of people's determination to resist unjust laws. And I think the time may have come when we in Britain and people in other countries, including the Soviet Union, may have to express resistance.
As we came into Maidenhead, it was dark. And by the time we got to our halt for the night, most of us were wet through, waiting in the drizzle while things were sorted out, searching in half darkness for our packs. But everyone got their stuff in the end, and the organization kept going. Sandwiches appeared from somewhere, and everyone got something to eat. So the march held together. And with something hot to drink, we felt we could face the next 2 days whatever happened. There wasn't much exhilaration on the march that night, but there was a sort of satisfaction all the same. We were halfway to Aldermaston. Easter Sunday morning saw us out on the road to Reading. The weather was kinder and spirits were good. We'd seen the Sunday papers and we knew that already we had half succeeded. People knew about the march to Aldermaston, and that meant they might begin to think. They knew about us abroad, in Germany, in China, in America and Japan. And they knew about us at home. They were coming out to see us. By midday, there were crowds around to see us pass and to draw their own conclusions. They were there, watching us as we came in to break for lunch. Most of us were glad of a halt by this time, the chance of a rest for tired feet. Looking back on it, it seems almost that these were the times that showed most clearly what the march was about. Not just what we were against, but what we were for. Living our Sundays as we like, for instance. Living is a big word, but it means a million little things. Like being with people we like, or people we love. Reading the Sunday newspapers, eating, sitting around talking, or making music. Being human, in fact. From here, it was 5 or 6 miles to Reading. The march was getting really big now. There were 6,000 of us or more. There were people all the way along the roadside, and there were motorcycles to see us through. What about all those people standing, watching? What were they thinking, we wondered? For us, the meaning of the march was plain.
Last night as I lay sleeping, my heart was filled with dread. I dreamt that the bomb had fallen and 1,000,000 people were dead. Millions of people were mourning, 1,000,000 were lying there dead. I looked that whole scene over, and these were the words I said. We could have been happy and peaceful. The bomb could be banned easily. But those politicians did everything but agree. Then a voice came out of the rubble. They're not only to blame. We'll tell you who's really guilty. And then they all started shouting my name. You gave politicians their power. You sat back and watched the TV. You could have forced them to ban it. you could have made them agree. Last night as I lay sleeping, my heart was filled with dread. I dreamt that the bomb had fallen and 1,000,000 people were dead.
So we came into Reading late on Easter Sunday, 1958. The bells were ringing as we came in, and we felt they were ringing for us. Now we had to get organized again. We had to find out where we could get something to eat and where we'd meet tomorrow. We had to find our packs and somewhere to sleep. We asked the vicar to stop the bells. But he said, "I do not approve of you. If my bells drown your voices, so much the better." And we realized again how many people were against us. But we weren't discouraged. We weren't refugees, but we might have been. Lucky refugees, though. Warm and dry and well-fed. People lent us their halls. The Quakers opened their meeting places to us. We were taken into homes. We made ourselves comfortable for the night. We bathed our little wounds. And we relaxed, everyone in his own way. We sat and talked, or read books. Most of the older ones took it easy. But the young ones never stopped. Some people think that to dance is frivolous, that it means you're not serious, out for a good time. But gaiety is part of this thing, too. It's no use being against death if you don't know how to enjoy life while you've got it. So on Easter Monday, we left Reading for Aldermaston, where the bombs are made. The march seemed endless now, bigger than we dared to hope, big enough to make even a politician think. Being ordinary people, we're not supposed to know about politics. But sometimes ordinary people must go to the politicians and statesmen and say, "You have forgotten what you are there for. You have forgotten that you're our servants, not our masters. We are the people who matter. As we got near to the factory, we marched in silence. And there it was. It took a long time to reach the factory gates, and we didn't arrive in triumph. We came in thinking of the people who laugh, as perhaps people laughed in Hiroshima the day before a small bomb exploded in the sky. Does an H-bomb have to explode here before we can wake up? The bombs that we are making today and storing in preparation for war are 1,000 times more powerful than those which devastated Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Of course, we are only people, but statesmen and military commanders now calmly talk of hundreds of millions of us exterminated within the space of 2 or 3 days. In Japan, there was a doctor called Hachiya who was in Hiroshima after the bomb fell. He wrote in his diary, "In the space of one night, people had become packed like mice into every nook and cranny of the hospital. Most of them were terribly burned. All were critically ill. Things were in chaos. And to make matters worse was the vomiting and diarrhea. Patients who could not walk were sick and urinated and defecated where they lay. The people who were burned suffered most, because as their flesh peeled off, raw, glistening wounds were exposed to the heat and filth. Nobody wants war, and nobody wants H-bombs. And yet, we go on making them. They have become familiar, and beneath their shadow we live. And all the time, the scientists of the world are at work in secret factories guarded by policemen on bigger bombs, more horrible weapons. And who will accept responsibility? The politicians sit round their tables and play the old-fashioned games of nationalism and prestige, but with new playthings. And the other side does the same. And so the nations of the world will go on talking until... And so, at Easter 1958, they marched to Aldermaston. When politicians fail, people must give the lead. Not people of one class or age or country, for this is everybody's cause. The challenge of our day confronts us. Have we the courage to meet it? We must give our answer now.